Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, and Pace Farm. Recently on Classic Restos, I featured some of the 40th anniversary of the original Mad Max movie. Today, I have returned to Clunes, Victoria to see the donut bike used in the movie. And after this, we travel east of Melbourne to check out some really cool stuff from a crankshaft workshop business. So hang around for donuts and crankshafts on this week's episode of Classic Restos. Well, being here in Clunes is a little bit surreal, obviously, from the first Mad Max film. I'm standing outside of the very shop front where the town lair was thrown out of the door and then towed behind the bike up the main street. The guy behind the bike in the movie was actually played by Mudguts. This is also the town for the famous Push Me, Pull You line by, again, Mudguts and Paul Kundalini. To me, it's not always about the big stars in movies. The smaller people play an integral part behind the scenes as well. The menacing donut bike in the first Mad Max movie was ridden by stuntman Dale Bensch, and it left some lasting impressions. Here today, we have two bikes. We have a replica and this one here, the original. The first bike up is the replica, and to tell us more, here is the owner, Yoshi, from Japan.
Hi, I'm Yoshi from Japan. Today in Clunes, I have a donut bike replica. My bike 2 years ago I buy in Australia, but many broken. My friend fix, and I many parts sent to Japan to Australia to send and make bike this year Mad Max 40th anniversary. Yes, I like this bike. Not popular, but Mad Max many type bike. Goose, Tokata, Baba Zanetti, many cool bike. But this bike in Clunes make donuts. But Japanese say Max Star. Yes, new word in Japan. I first time look Mad Max high school. Very cool bike. Yes, I want to ride. I want to ride Mad Max country. It's Australia. I want to have same bike. Yes, my dream. This bike, my dream come true.
This bike behind me here was the original one from the movie Mad Max. Anyway, long story short, is about 10 years ago I heard about a motorcycle that was suggested to be my old bike that was used, and most notably for the donut and the mono wheel stand in Clunes. And nothing's basically happened for nearly 10 years, and by just a bit of luck, back in February, March this year, only about 10 weeks ago, the current owners got feedback that this is the original bike, authenticated, and in 10 weeks they've put it back, restored it back to very much like it looked back then, and so, I'm just stoked by this, and I'm just lucky to be a part of it. It's a pleasure to be here, and yes, I'm privileged to be part of it. This same motorcycle that's here I bought brand new in April 1976, and customised it over some years. I owned it till sometime in '79, and used it in Mad Max filming in 1977, 78, and I tricked it up and drag raced it a bit up until a bit after Mad Max. And in the movie, it was a long time ago, over 41 years ago, and I just had the feeling in my mind that it was the quickest one out of all the toe cutter gang. But you know, it was a pleasure riding it back then, but it's so long ago I've sort of forgotten it. And you know, it's quicker than the new Harleys. We come up here for 2 days from memory and stayed overnight on the floor of the pub. It's not a pub anymore. I think the actors, the characters had rooms and we had a floor. But this town was and still is pretty much a beautiful old country town that reminds you of the gold mining days and all that. And yeah, the donut I described to George Miller, Byron Kennedy, and in one of my photos I did a half of donut to show them what it sort of looks like, and so they went with it, and yeah, now it's a memorable part of the film. So you know, a bit lucky in that, and the borrowed paint job helped it a bit too. I think it looked a lot better than my standard paint job I had at that time. It was a pleasure being up here today with this original bike, and this is the second appearance, sort of luckily, that I've been on Fletch's show. And the background work that's been done with input from myself and some other people about this bike is absolutely amazing, and it's so exciting to be up here today. Joe and Jason, a couple of people who own it now, have put in so much work. You know, I can't believe it. And yeah, the emotion that came through to myself from previously owning this bike, when the authentication came through, and I know the current owners had the similar sort of emotions. It's amazing, and it's such a privilege, and I was so lucky to be part of all this with, you know, there's about 10 people involved on getting to where we are today here with this authenticated motorcycle, and, you know, I just love it.
And it goes without saying that if you own a classic bike, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646. And thanks for watching Classic Restos. There are over 310 episodes waiting for you at the Shannons Club, along with a whole heap of other cool stuff there waiting for you as well. For more information, visit shannons.com.au.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannons,
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover.
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be.
Shannon's.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 134646 for a quote.
If you have a restoration project, Hare and Forbes has the tools that you need. Shrinker stretchers, dollies, mallets, bead rollers, profile gauges, professional panel restoration kits, and so much more. Now I warn you, enter at your own risk because you will end up buying something. So come along to your Cap City store or browse and buy online at machineryhouse.com.au because Hare and Forbes has the range.
I'm actually the owner of the Mad Max bike, original owner of Dale, which was originally owned by Dale Bensch. It's actually a Z900. It's been bought out to 1,050 cc's. It's got cams. Apart from that, yeah, she's pretty original. The condition of the motorcycle when I got it was very poor. Whole history of this bike is just being dragged. It's been there and done it, you know, and to still have the original engine in it to this day is amazing in itself. I found it at Dimboola. Peter Mays actually owned it. When I picked it up off him, the tank and the rocket cover was off it and it was sitting under the tree at the Dimboola Caravan Park. The bike definitely needed a lot of love. Basically when I got the bike, Peter Mays, he told me the story about being the Mad Max bike and stuff, and my wife started following up on it with Dale and a few contacts and stuff. She said, under no circumstances, pull the bike apart until we get confirmation on whether it's actually the real bike. But I got an injury doing the Think Desert race or whatever it was at the time, broke my knee, and I got to be pulled in the shed, so I pulled it apart. With the restoration, we got confirmation about 9 weeks ago that it was the bike, and it's the 40th anniversary for Mad Max, so we were under the pump to get this bike done. We built this bike in 9 weeks, and out of the 9 weeks I was away for 7 of them, so there was a lot of help from a lot of mates and to get this bike built. Like your mate at KZ Cars, he did all the paintwork, and my good neighbour, Murray McClure, did all the exhausts. He fabricated the handlebars for me. Like he helped me out immensely as well. Like one for them, like the bike wouldn't have got built, like this wouldn't happen. Yeah, it's actually, once we found out the that it was actually the Mad Max bike, like we always thought it was, but to actually physically find out, to get the paperwork and say yes, it's it, like wow, you know, like it's a one-off thing, and yeah, it was amazing, you know. But after we found out it was the bike, then the wife went through all the other previous owners and what this bike has done. This thing's got Salt Lake records, it's got drag race records, it's got unbelievable history. What these guys have done this bike over the last 40 years is unbelievable. I took it out to a local track. Went it out to over 200 k's an hour. A very fast bike still. The ride's beautiful. Like I said, the bottom end, the pistons and everything in it is still original. All I've done to it, put a set of rings in it, set of valves, cams, but this thing's got straight out 2.5 inch pipe straight out of the header pipe. So this thing is loud, like it's stupid. I don't know how, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know, they reckon they rode around like this for years with this exhaust system on. Like, why would you? It just crackles, like it's just ridiculous. You hear it going shortly and it is loud. It's stupid, it is ridiculous. Yeah, with Dale and stuff, and yeah, like it is an honour to actually own the bike. It's a lot of hours. My wife, she spent a lot of hours on the phone talking to Dale and now the previous owners, and just a lot of homework and a lot of hours, and it's got great history. And all the history is going to go with the bike if I ever sell it. It's all there, so it's good. Yeah, at this stage of the game, my intentions are to keep it and just enjoy the bike, and now that it's built, we can get some Ks on it. I've done like 500 kilometres on this bike in 5 or 6 years I've owned it, and now it's all built. We can enjoy it and take it a few meetings like we're doing here today. We're maybe doing like some cancer foundation stuff with it as well. Back at home, the guys are trying to organise something for that as well. They're pretty keen on it, so the bike will go down there for a while and I'll do that with it, and you know, just try to do some charity work with it and stuff like that, you know, so hopefully it works out for them.
So Dale, all these years down the track, how does it feel? We're right here, X marks the spot where the donut took place here in Clunes.
Yeah, it brings back a bit of memories from a long time ago, and
You wouldn't have thought that a skid on the tar would have meant so much to so many people, so many decades down the track.
correct, like it had more effect than the one I did, the donut I did on my 750 Honda at trade school, you know.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, mate, for something that went so well from back in a time where no one had ideas of how successful the movie was going to actually be.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Nobody knew. It was a bit of hit and miss. I mean, it was like a lot of things got together well. The footage, the filming style, the cameras they used, the editing, and it just clicked and became a cult, yeah.
Well, how cool was the donut bike? An incredible effort from Dale Bensch back in the day, and everybody involved now in 2019. On today's show, it's time to put a bit of crank into your shaft. Now, we can talk about crankshafts, but when you get up close and personal with one, that is even better. I'm standing outside of Crankshaft Rebuilders east of Melbourne, and it's good to see that the experience required for engine rebuilding is still alive and well. Crankshaft Rebuilders was established in 1977 by the founder and owner Mr. Ian Shug. The business, as the name suggests, started out with predominantly repairing crankshafts, but as time went on, Ian could see the need for the business to evolve, incorporating more areas of engine reconditioning. From basic engine machining services onto performance enhancements, Crankshaft Rebuilders have been responsible for many engine repairs and restorations throughout Australia and the South Pacific regions. The crankshaft could almost be looked upon as the spine of your engine, representing the rotating assembly. Here at Crankshaft Rebuilders, everything else can be taken care of as well, such as your engine block, rods, heads, balancing, and so much more. Nice to know too that all of this takes place under the one roof. Over the years, customers have been established from many walks of life within the motor industry. From private motor mechanics repair shops through to top-of-the-tree race teams, crankshaft rebuilders have excelled every step of the way.
Welcome to Crankshaft Rebuilders. We've been here for a long time, as we've discussed earlier. The business was formed in 1977 by Ian Shug. Look, we're basically still priding ourselves in what we do here. Over many years we've been involved in motorsport of many types of boat racing, car racing, circuit racing, and as far as engine reconditioning, we do a lot of services of boring and honing blocks and grinding crankshafts and resizing rods and balancing motors, reconditioning cylinder heads. But we sort of take a lot of pride in what we do here to help people's restorations. You know, we have a lot of people with passions, obviously, throughout Australia that send us their engines for full-on reconditioning. So we've been, over the many years, we've been obviously experiencing cars getting longer in the tooth and motors coming out, and the vintage restorations can go from the 20s to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, 60s and so on. So there's a lot of scope here for vintage restoration as well as classic muscle. So yeah, that's part of all the work we do here. I've been with Crankshaft Rebuilders since '94, from early beginnings to where I am now. I'm now the manager of Crankshaft Rebuilders. My roles on a day-to-day basis are wide and varied, of dealing with the customers on the phone, the emails, packaging and wrapping and strapping things to go to on freight. We have a lot of customer base from all over Australia. So a lot of the engines that come in could come in bits and pieces, and then more pieces have actually brought in. So by the time it gets all finished, there's a lot more than what first came in the door. So a lot of wrapping and strapping and making sure those goods have now become a big dollar price, get to where their destinations are in a safe manner. With engine reconditioning of vintage restorations and performance muscle cars, etc., and depending on what the customer wants out of it, whether it be a performance or just a stock rebuild, it really does pay to give us a ring or even email me so I can go through the motions. But once we get the components from the start, it's basically the first preliminaries of cleaning and crack testing and inspecting the components to know where that direction will take on the grinding of the crankshaft or the boring of the block. Sometimes we do a lot of sonic testing on wall thickness to see what size bore the block will go out to. So before you get too worried about spending $10,000, $20,000 on an engine, it's best to come and give us a call or send us an email so we can go through it with you and work out where you're heading from there. With engine reconditioning, for those of you out there that haven't an engine rebuilt, you know how good it is. For those of you who haven't, you know, things to look forward to is a new camshaft, an engine being balanced, surface flywheel, dialing the clutch cover to the flywheel, all the enhancements that can make a much stronger engine and a much smoother engine and give that person turning the key a much better feeling about what they had prior to the engine rebuild. So it's worth going through for some of those engines that are out there that have been trundling along to car meetings and car shows and wanting a bit more out of it. Maybe it's the time to pull that engine out and give it a birthday that it needs. With engine reconditioning, the intricate details of getting compression to where we want to on today's fuels involves a lot of different work with putting hardened seats on the exhaust, K-line guides throughout, and then dummy assembling the engine, working at the exact piston to deck height, CCing the volume of the cylinder head and getting the compression ratio, depending on what the force for the course is, but 9.8 to 1, getting the distributor recalibrated and getting the engine at optimum performance. Fuel economy, on the other hand, well, that's kind of like, not many of our customers are overly worried about the fuel economy side of things. It's more of a case of going hard and getting a good value for money out of their engine rebuild. The fuel economies subsequently, if we get it, great. I suppose in closing, I'd like to, thank you for having the time to listen to us today. And look, but as I said earlier, feel free to give me a call, give me an email, and the doors are always welcome here at Crankshaft Rebuilders to help you with that engine rebuild. Thank you.
I spend a lot of time out here. The RT Charger's the real deal, an E49. Remember A-Charger? I've always got projects on the go, so Shannon's laid-up cover helps protect my restorations. I'm Mopar through and through. It's a passion Shannon's understands. I wouldn't insure my cars and bikes with anyone else.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
Hare and Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools, sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare and Forbes has the range. With me now, Ian Shug. How are you, Ian?
Very well, thanks, Fletch.
Thank you for letting me in.
It's been a good show.
Thank you so much. You know what? I have to say this. I've got so much admiration for the old school tradition that you guys are continuing here. The way that the world is changing. It's great to see, like I said, the old school stuff.
Yeah, well, most of the blokes here have been working in the industry for 15, 20, 30 years. And the basic industry hasn't changed very much in that time. So, yeah, we're still doing it the same. Maybe with more modern equipment, but the principles are still the same. Yeah.
What are some of the changes that you've seen with crankshafts over the years?
Most of the crankshafts manufactured today, a lot of them are steel, where in the earlier days they had cast iron, nodular iron, and now because of the motors having more output, most of them are steel crankshafts, just like something like we've got in front of us here.
Give us the rundown here. What's going on there, Ian?
Well, this one's a Holden 186. It's made out of a billet, which is a round bit of steel to start off with, and that's put in a series of CNC machines. So it's got the mains machine for a start, counterweight diameters, then it goes into a four-axis mill where the big ends are generated, and then we heat treat it, stress relieve it, we'll post grind it, oil holes, flanges, nose, then we'll do a final grind on it, and then it gets nitrided and then linished and balanced, and yeah, it's a unit ready to go in.
Some of those big cranks out the back there from billets, works of art, absolute workmanship.
Well, there's a lot of work in them because, you know, your billet may be 200 kilos to start off with, and by the time you finish machining you've got something which is 35 or 40, so the swarf bin's full of swarf which is $6 a kilo, so yeah, that's why billet shafts are so expensive.
To me, I reckon as I said, they're a work of art. I could picture one of those with a piece of glass over the top as a coffee table, and they're a talking point.
Expensive coffee table.
So it just depends how much you like your coffee, right?
Yeah, well, it's quite often people get the big blower, you know, drag shafts, which don't last very long, and they'll put them under coffee tables. Yeah.
Now, Ian, starting the business back in 1977, you'd remember the old days. I mean, you'd even remember the days of, I guess, the Gelignite Jack and the Red X trials, all those stories that you would have heard, the grey engines from the Holdens. You would have worked on everything.
There's probably not too much we haven't worked on, especially grey engines. Yeah, we've done a lot of work. We even did the grey engine with Ian Tate that Brocky raced over at Goodwood. Yeah, I've got a Holden special sports car that I'm slowly building up, but all those bits went in Brocky's motor, so I have to start again. But yeah, the Repco Holden head on them, you know, they make a couple of hundred horsepower, 220, 230 horsepower, and we make up special crankshafts for them because the old Holden crankshafts, you know, they didn't have much of a life, so we make up a billet shaft for those, a spool type billet. We've made a lot of those now. We even stroke them; they can come out probably nearly 179 cubic inches now, because we put a 3 and 5/8 stroke into them. You know, standard strokes 3 and 1/8. So yeah, make a big motor out of them. That helps them get up and go. Yeah.
All right, Ian, thank you so much for your hospitality here today. As I alluded to earlier, the old school feel here, even in the building and talking to the staff, seeing the workmanship, it's a credit to you, mate. And to think that
Thanks, Fletch.
you kicked it off so long ago and you're still going. Well done.
Well, I'm kind of retired.
Shh, we won't tell them that.
Good on you, thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Cheers, mate.
Bye.
Well, how's that? That's a wrap. I hope you've really enjoyed this week's episode of Classic Restos, Donuts and Crankshafts. As I say at the end of every episode, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, until next week, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au.
Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, and Pace Farm.